All right, what's up, family? We got a little different one for you today. We're going to do a little health slash educational stuff. This one here, we're going to title it Sports Nose Injuries. Yeah, sports nose injuries. We see them all the time, rather it's people around us, immediate people around us in our circle, people you encounter when you out and about, whatever. But especially as we watch these sporting events, like MMA, UFC and all that type of stuff. We see these type of injuries all too often, right? How often you see someone with nose injuries? And right away we say, oh man, he or she has a broken nose, right? Especially when it's crooked like this here. Now let me tell you, that's not necessarily always a broken nose. That's what made me thought to do this video here. Sometimes that is what's called a deviated septum. Yes, deviated septum. It can lead to, it is a nose injury. And would you believe sometimes some people are actually born with that and they need to get it corrected or whatever the case. But there is a difference between a deviated septum and a broken nose. But as I said, we all are all too familiar with UFC, MMA fighting. Like I said, even in sports, there's sports injuries where someone's nose get fractured, damaged, broke, whatever, right? When we see these people with these crooked noses right away, you can be in the grocery store, you're like, oh man, you see that guy nose? Man, his nose messed up. He must be a fighter. In most cases, that is the case. But let me tell you, there is a difference between a deviated septum. Remember, a deviated septum is when the nose is crooked and it's off center. So let me explain what that means. The difference is when it moves to one side and causes blockage, it's called the deviated septum and can lead to significant breathing difficulties. Most common way to correct that is through surgery, some form of surgery. Now, the difference, on the other hand, is a broken nose. A broken nose occurs when there is some form of trauma, forceful blow to the nose that causes cartilage or bone fractures to the nose. See, now that's the difference. See, a deviated septum is not necessarily a broken nose, even though we see people with these crooked noses. Sometimes it's somewhat got a little bit of a fracture in it, but it do have some form of damage or it's incorrect some kind of way, but it's not necessarily a broken nose. Because remember, a broken nose cause, even an airbag in a car, because it could break someone's nose. People forget how much force that thing come through. But a broken nose occurs mostly when it's forceful blow and it damaged cartilage, whereas a deviated septum is when it moves from one side to the other, making one side smaller, and it makes a blockage. That's a deviated septum. Now, as I said, back to fighting and all that. We have all seen, especially if someone like me, you like boxing, you like fighting events, UFC, men and women. There's a lot of women. Hey, look at these women right here. These women went through battles in that octagon or in that ring, right? And women like this here, even with their broken nose, they said, no, don't stop this fight. I'm gonna fight to the end until I win this. Sometimes that was the case. That could be a savage person. That's a beast right there. But remember, even in sports, you get injuries. I don't care what sport it is. Women get injuries just like men. Some women, they that just ferocious, really like, man, this nose injury is not gonna stop me. I'm still gonna play and I'm still gonna battle on. You get what I'm saying? But then let's go into something else about a broken nose, right? A broken or cracked bone in the nose possibly causes, the possible causes of most broken noses come from sports injuries, some form of trauma, like I said, fights. The nose may look crooked. It may have some type of swelling, some type of tenderness. And we know you hit somebody right in the nose, all of a sudden their eyes water up. They get a black eye and all that. They get difficult breathing through their nose. These are the simple conditions of a fractured, possible broken nose. Like I said, even in sports. Y'all remember this play right here? This was crucial. Remember, old boy hit him on the court. He had to leave the game and go get immediate surgery. But he came back to the game. That was amazing. But I've seen so many injuries like that right there. Or would you believe, sometimes people may have what's called a deviated septum. Remember, that's going to be the word of the day. Deviated septum, which, learn something different, right? Sometimes, like I said, some people may just be born with it, a crooked nose, it's hereditary. And they may want surgery. It's not always through injury. A broken nose is, that's why it's broken. But sometimes some people are unfortunately born with a nose that they don't find too pleasant. They don't find too attractive. And they seek out surgery to correct their nose to make it better. But I will say, with men and women in these fights, when you see them and you see them noses like that, whoo, this take a real beast of a man and a beast of a woman to still fight on and go through them battles. Now remember, complications or injuries related to a broken nose may include deviated, remember that's the word of the day, deviated septum, or nose fracture may cause a deviated septum. You know what I'm saying? Like a broken nose could cause a deviated septum. A deviated septum could lead to a broken nose. It's like either or. This condition occurs when the thin wall dividing the two sides of the nose, which is the nasal septum, is displaced, narrowing your nasal passage. It's harder to breathe when you got that deviated septum. But ultimately, what I'm talking about is how we see this all too often with people. But don't always just assume when you see someone's nose that's a little off-centered, it's not symmetrical, whatever, and it's off-centered, and you just think, oh man, they got a broken nose. It's not always a broken nose. Sometimes it's just that. It's a deviated, what's called a deviated septum, meaning it's little crooked off line. That's all it is, and it's not necessarily broken. Like I said, a broken nose occurs when you got a forceful blow or some form of trauma, and it breaks cartilage. I just thought I'd do a little different video today because, as I said, and I'm being redundant here, we have seen these type of people, pictures, fights, sports quite often. And some are worse than others. I'm sure you can see you here. You're going to go, wow, look at that. That is amazing. How someone's nose could be that bad in a fight. That is crazy, right? But just know the difference. There is a definite difference between a broken nose and a deviated septum. So just to give you a real short recap, a deviated septum is when it moves to one side and causes blockage. It's called the deviated septum. And this leads to significant breathing difficulties. It just moves to one side and it's not necessarily broken. Whereas a broken nose is when it's some type of forced trauma and blow to the nose that breaks cartilage and it makes like a bone fracture. And in both cases, you need surgery. Sometimes, I know this may sound crazy, we have even seen some people, they grab their nose and they break it back in place. Now, I don't know how much does that actually fix it, but we've seen people do that. That's, woo, I can only imagine the pain behind that. But just thought I'd give you something different today, folks. Something educational and something aware that we are all too familiar with. And we have definitely seen this quite often. So now you could put another name to it other than just always saying broken nose. So when you see that person out and about at the grocery store, it's not always a broken nose. Sometimes it's just a deviated septum, meaning the nose is a little off-center. It's not necessarily broken. It may be broken, but not always. And on that note, peace.